Welcome back everyone to our channel, and thank you for joining us for this critical news update. I am your host, and today we are breaking down one of the most alarming developments to emerge from the Middle East in recent memory. Reports are coming in that Iran has struck Israeli fuel depots in a major escalation that has reportedly grounded F-35 fighter jets and forced senior IDF commanders into bunkers. This is a developing situation, and we are going to walk you through everything we know right now, what it means for the region, and what could happen next. If this is your first time here, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a breaking news update from us. Let us get straight into it. Here is what we know at this hour. According to multiple regional reports and intelligence sources being cited by analysts tracking the conflict, Iranian forces carried out a strike operation targeting fuel infrastructure used by Israeli military aviation. The strikes are reported to have hit fuel storage depots that supply a significant portion of the aviation fuel needed to keep Israeli Air Force operations running at full capacity. The operational impact of these strikes, if confirmed at the scale being reported, would be substantial. Without adequate fuel supplies, Israeli F-35 stealth fighters and other combat aircraft cannot conduct sustained sortie rates. That means Israel's ability to project air power over Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and potentially further afield would be temporarily degraded. And in a conflict environment where air superiority is one of Israel's most critical strategic advantages, any degradation of that capability is extremely significant. Now let us talk about the F-35 situation, because this is one of the most consequential aspects of this report. Israel operates the F-35I Adir, which is a locally modified version of the American F-35 stealth fighter. Israel was the first country outside the United States to receive the F-35 and has modified these aircraft with Israeli-specific systems, including electronic warfare suites and weapons integration. These aircraft are Israel's most advanced frontline fighters and are central to its ability to penetrate heavily defended airspace. If these aircraft have been grounded due to fuel supply disruptions, that represents a serious hole in Israeli air defense and strike capabilities. Now, it is important to note that grounding due to fuel supply issues is different from the aircraft being destroyed. These aircraft can be returned to service once fuel supplies are restored or alternative supplies are brought in. But in the immediate term, in a conflict that moves at the speed we are seeing right now, even a temporary grounding of advanced fighter aircraft is an operational problem of the first order. American military planners and Israeli defense officials will be acutely aware of this vulnerability, and we can expect emergency measures to restore aviation fuel supplies to be underway, even as we are speaking right now. Now let us talk about the IDF leadership situation, because the reports of senior commanders being in bunkers tells us something very important about how Israeli leadership is assessing the threat environment right now. In Israeli military doctrine and planning, the dispersal of senior commanders to protected command facilities is not done lightly. It is done when the threat assessment indicates a genuine risk of strikes against command and control infrastructure. The fact that IDF chiefs are reported to be operating from bunkers suggests that Israeli intelligence believes Iran either has the capability or the intention to target senior military leadership directly. This is an extremely serious escalation in the nature of the conflict. Targeting command and control infrastructure and senior military leadership is a step that fundamentally changes the character of a conflict. It moves from a situation where both sides are fighting over territory or military assets to a situation where each side is trying to decapitate the other's military leadership. If Israel believes Iran is genuinely targeting its senior commanders, then the Israeli response will be calibrated not just to destroy military assets, but to demonstrate that Iran's own leadership is equally vulnerable. And that cycle of escalation is one of the most dangerous dynamics in any military conflict. Let us now put this in the broader context of what has been happening between Iran and Israel over the past period, because this latest development does not exist in a vacuum. The conflict between Iran and Israel has been escalating through a series of strikes and counterstrikes that have progressively crossed red lines that both sides previously respected. Iran's strike on Israeli fuel infrastructure represents a significant doctrinal shift in how Tehran is approaching this conflict. Previously, Iranian strikes and those of its proxies focused primarily on military installations, air defense batteries, and in some cases, civilian areas. Targeting fuel logistics infrastructure is a different kind of strike. It is a strike designed to degrade Israeli military operational capacity over time, rather than achieve an immediate tactical effect. It suggests that Iranian military planners are thinking about this conflict in terms of a sustained campaign, rather than a series of discrete strikes. And that kind of thinking, combined with the scale and precision of the strikes being reported, suggests that Iran has invested significant intelligence and planning resources into identifying and targeting Israeli military vulnerabilities. Now let us talk about the American dimension of this story, because the United States is deeply involved in this conflict, whether Washington wants to publicly acknowledge the full extent of that involvement or not. American forces are present in the region in significant numbers. The United States has air defense assets in Israel and in surrounding countries. American intelligence is being shared with Israeli counterparts in real time. And the F-35 aircraft that may have been grounded are American-manufactured aircraft that were sold to Israel under a defense agreement that includes American oversight of how they are used. The Trump administration is going to be watching this situation extremely closely. On one hand, Washington has been engaged in diplomatic efforts to reach some kind of deal with Iran on its nuclear program. On the other hand, the United States has consistently reaffirmed its commitment to Israeli security. These two objectives are becoming increasingly difficult to pursue simultaneously as the conflict escalates. If Iran is striking Israeli military infrastructure at this scale, the pressure on Washington to respond in some way will be enormous. The question is what form that response takes, and whether it helps de-escalate the situation or pours fuel on an already burning fire. Let us talk about what this means for the energy markets, because any significant escalation involving Iran has immediate consequences for global oil prices and energy supply. Iran is a major oil producer and a key player in OPEC. Any military escalation that threatens to draw Iran into a broader conflict raises the specter of Iranian oil supplies being disrupted, and more importantly, raises the risk that the Strait of Hormuz could be threatened. We have covered the Strait of Hormuz extensively on this channel, and the numbers are worth repeating because they are that important. Approximately 20% of all globally traded oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. If that waterway is threatened or disrupted in any meaningful way, the impact on global energy prices would be immediate and severe. Oil markets are already reacting to the latest reports, and we are seeing price movements that reflect the anxiety of traders and investors about where this conflict is heading. If the situation continues to escalate, we could be looking at oil prices that move significantly higher in the coming days and weeks. And higher oil prices mean higher fuel costs, higher transportation costs, and higher prices for virtually everything that is manufactured or shipped anywhere in the world. This is not just a Middle East story. This is a story that affects every household in every country that relies on global energy markets. Now let us discuss the regional military picture more broadly, because Israel and Iran are not the only players here. Hezbollah in Lebanon remains a significant military force with a large arsenal of rockets and missiles pointed at Israel. The Houthi movement in Yemen has demonstrated the capability and the will to strike targets at significant distances, including Israel and shipping in the Red Sea. Iranian-aligned militias in Iraq and Syria have the ability to complicate American and Israeli military operations in the region. And behind all of these proxy forces stands Iran with its own increasingly capable missile arsenal and its revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the primary instrument of Iranian power projection in the region. If this conflict continues to escalate, the risk is not just of an Israeli-Iranian exchange. The risk is of a much broader regional conflagration that pulls in multiple actors and creates a conflict environment that is extraordinarily difficult to manage or contain. Military analysts who have been wargaming scenarios for this kind of escalation have consistently warned that once a regional war in the Middle East reaches a certain threshold of intensity, the ability of any outside power, including the United States, to de-escalate it diminishes rapidly. We are not there yet, but the direction of travel is deeply concerning. Let us now talk about what the international community is doing and saying in response to these latest developments. The United Nations Security Council is expected to convene for emergency discussions. European governments are issuing statements calling for de-escalation and restraint from all parties. Arab governments in the Gulf region are watching with extreme anxiety because they understand that a broader regional war would have devastating consequences for their own stability and economic development. Russia and China, both of which have significant relationships with Iran, are being called upon by Western governments to use their influence in Tehran to prevent further escalation. Whether those calls will have any effect is something we will be monitoring very closely. And the International Atomic Energy Agency, which monitors Iran's nuclear program, is in a particularly sensitive position right now because any further military escalation increases the risk that Iran might make decisions about its nuclear program that dramatically change the security calculus for the entire region. Here is what our analysts are watching most closely in the coming hours and days. First, the Israeli military response to the fuel depot strikes. Israel has a consistent doctrine of responding to attacks, and the nature of its response will tell us a great deal about how Israeli leadership is assessing the situation and what they are prepared to do. Second, any statements or actions from the Iranian side that indicate whether Tehran sees this latest strike as a significant escalation or as part of an ongoing exchange. Third, American military movements in the region, including any repositioning of naval assets, aircraft carrier groups, or additional air defense systems. Such movements would signal that Washington is preparing for the possibility of a broader conflict. Fourth, the condition of Israeli air operations in the coming 24 to 48 hours. If Israeli F-35s and other aircraft return to operational status quickly, it suggests that Israel has successfully found alternative fuel supplies, or that the damage to fuel infrastructure was less severe than initially reported. If air operations remain degraded for an extended period, it suggests the strikes were more effective than Iran's previous attempts to hit Israeli military capacity. And fifth, any signs of diplomatic back-channel activity between Tehran and Jerusalem through intermediaries. Even in the middle of intense military exchanges, back-channel communications often continue, and they are sometimes the first indicator that one or both sides is looking for an off-ramp from escalation. Let us talk about what the experts and analysts who have been following this conflict most closely are saying about where it goes from here. The analysts who are most pessimistic about the trajectory of this conflict point to several factors that they believe make de-escalation extremely difficult. They point to the fact that both sides have now crossed multiple red lines that previously served as guardrails on the conflict. They point to the domestic political pressures in both Israel and Iran that make it very difficult for leaders to appear to be backing down. They point to the involvement of multiple proxy forces that each have their own agendas and are not always controllable by their Iranian sponsors. And they point to the uncertainty about American intentions and capabilities under the current administration, which creates a vacuum of strategic clarity that both sides may be tempted to exploit. The analysts who are more optimistic about the possibility of de-escalation point to the fact that neither Israel nor Iran has an obvious endgame that involves a full-scale regional war. Such a war would be catastrophically costly for both sides. They also point to the fact that there are multiple third parties, including Qatar, Turkey, and to some extent China, that have relationships with Iran and could serve as intermediaries in a de-escalation process. And they point to the economic pressures on Iran, which is operating under significant sanctions and cannot afford a conflict that further damages its economy and infrastructure. Here is the bottom line for what we know right now and what it means. If the reports about Iranian strikes on Israeli fuel depots are accurate, and if those strikes have genuinely grounded F-35 aircraft and forced IDF commanders into bunkers, then we are witnessing a significant escalation in a conflict that was already at a very dangerous level. This is not a situation where either side is clearly winning or losing. This is a situation where both sides are taking actions that increase the risk of a broader conflict, while neither side appears to have a clear strategic plan for how this ends. The immediate priorities from a global perspective are for American and other international diplomacy to work urgently to prevent further escalation, for both sides to maintain communication channels even while military operations are ongoing, and for the international community to present a credible framework for de-escalation that gives both Israel and Iran a way to step back from the brink without appearing to have capitulated. Whether any of that is achievable in the current environment is frankly uncertain, but it is the only path that leads away from a conflict that could be devastating for the entire region and for the global economy. We will continue to monitor this situation and bring you updates as they develop. This is a fast-moving story, and the situation on the ground can change significantly in a matter of hours. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you get our updates the moment we post them. If you found this coverage useful, please share this video so more people can stay informed about what is happening. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what aspect of this story you want us to dig into more deeply in our next update. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, and we will see you in the next update.